So where I live behind my house, there's like an alleyway, and it has some like questionable buildings and questionable people, and usually they get into some sort of fights, and I'm nosy, so I get to hear them sometimes, but it's never really been anything interesting until one summer. I was in my backyard doing some math homework, and like as per usual, a bitch was struggling. So I'm sitting there thinking why we need to prove it's a triangle if we have two eyes and a brain, and all of a sudden I hear some voices from the back alleyway. And obviously I don't want to do my work, so I go to the gate that faces the back alleyway. That's like my backyard is on this side, the alleyway is on this side, and I bring out my little step stool and I step on the stool and I pee through the hole because of course I have a peephole and a step stool to watch through the peephole. And I see like a group of teenage boys that are about my age, and they're all just like drinking Red Bull and talking about stuff I don't care about, until all of a sudden I see a shuffle and a commotion, and I duck because I don't want them to see me staring and just see like one eye through the hole. And I hear, "Bro, you brought a knife?" I'm like, what did I miss? So they start freaking out. They're like, "Bro, you brought a knife? You said if we were gonna do this you weren't gonna bring a knife." He's like, "I didn't bring a knife." They're like, "You're holding the knife." He's like, "Yeah, okay, I brought a knife, but I wasn't going to use it. I wasn't going to stab you." A bunch of guys start dispersing. Everyone starts running except for like 3 people, including the guy who has the knife. And he's trying to convince the guy. He's like, "Bro, I promise. On God, I was not going to stab you." And the other guy's like, "Just leave me alone. Don't touch me." He's like, "On God, I wasn't going to stab you." Then the one who's pissed off he brought a knife says, "You know what? Just don't touch me. We need to find it before we leave." I'm like, "What's it?" The guy with the knife is like, I know we need to find it." He's like, "It's somewhere in this alleyway, and if we lose it and the cops find it, we are going to prison for life." I am behind my barbecue text in the Snapchat group chat like LMFAO, guys. So the one without the knife starts losing his mind, talking about his family history. He's like, "Bro, if we don't find this and the cops find it first and they know we were here, I gotta lay low, okay? I've been trying to find a place to lay low because if the cops see me, I'm going to prison for life, and maybe if I go to prison, then I'm gonna have to see my uncle in prison." And now prison uncle and knife holder are starting to just go at it. These guys were having like a serious heart-to-heart about their futures, and I was on the other side of the fence crawling next to them, hoping they didn't see me. It was really funny. I genuinely don't think they did anything that's actually gonna send them to prison. I just think that they thought they were all that. Still, I just want you to think of the logistics of it. You are going to go to prison for life. If you get seen by the cops, you have to lay low, or else you're going to see your uncle in prison, and you just pick the most discreet place you can find where no one will see you, and on the other side of that fence is a nosy 17-year-old bitch in the Snapchat group chat who will then tell her 1.2 million followers on the internet about it. Badass luck, bitch.
Am I the asshole for deciding not to let my husband into the delivery room? I, 29 female, and my husband, 30 male, have been together for 8 years. I am now 8 months pregnant, almost 9 with a girl. In my husband's family, there's a tradition of naming the baby before it's born. The name is embroidered onto a blanket that has been passed down from generation to generation, and the baby is wrapped in the blanket when it's born. I'm trying to come up with a name we both like, but some of the names that he suggests do not resonate with me. My husband has been getting annoyed with me lately and telling me just to pick a name for the baby, as his grandmother's name was Beatrice. He wants to name her that, but I just don't like it. I wanted to have a list of names so when I see her, I can name her after what I think is appropriate. Although it can sound odd, I wanted to see her before naming her, but have decided not to do so that we can please his family. In honor of my late sister, I wanted to name her Jessica. That was her name before she passed away from a heart attack. It means a lot to me, but I hadn't told him that particular name yet because I didn't want to hear any insults about it. Every time I suggest a name, he'll attack it, calling it ugly in a variety of ways. Today, his mother was pressuring me to suggest a name, and I just blurted out the name Jessica. After a pause and a laugh, she said that was a name for a very large girl, and it was a very unsuitable name. She went on to ask me if I wanted the baby to be ugly and if I was trying to ruin its life before it was even born. Initially, I was overwhelmed with anger, and I asked her to stop talking. More harshly than I should have, as she didn't have the right to imply that others were ugly when she herself is no Beyonce. Annoyed, she told me to leave her house. Not wanting to cause any further argument, I left, and when I returned home, my husband explained to me that he was extremely disappointed in my actions and that he couldn't look at me. As he is close with his sister, he struggled with his frustrations with her, which she then did to her mother. The next day, she was at my doorstep and told me that she decided on a name, and then said that my decor was tacky. She said that she was naming the baby Connie after her mother. It was a name neither my husband or I picked, and wouldn't cause an argument between us. I told her no and asked her to leave, and eventually she did, but not after some insults were issued to me. I asked my husband about it, and he said that I have no right to speak about any of this, as I also have not been open to the names that he suggests. He then said that I was incredibly selfish and said I should go. I packed my things and went to my sister's house. She was fuming at my husband and how they insulted our younger sister's name. He's been trying to contact me for a few days now apologizing, but I don't want to speak to him. I've also decided that I'm not telling his family when I go into labor. And if I must, I'm not allowing them anywhere near me when I'm birthing the child. Am I the asshole?
I'm a female serial cheater. I consciously and deliberately cheat in almost all my relationships. You would never know unless I tell you. I've never told anyone about this, not even my best friends. Because you can't trust anyone these days. I just can't help myself. I prefer to be with more than one partner at a time. I just think I can't be devoted to only one person. I've seen my sisters and some of my friends get cheated on. And I've seen how bad it hurts them. I've tried to stick to one person, but I always end up cheating. But all this changed when I met Frank. For some reason, when I started dating him, I didn't want to be with anyone else but him. I cut contact with all other men in my life and dedicated all my time to him. I dated Frank for a year till he proposed marriage. I've never wanted to get married because of my lifestyle, and I was a little bit scared I might go back to my old ways. But if I could be with only him for a year, I felt I could stay with only him for the rest of my life. We got married and everything seemed to be going fine till I met Eric. Eric was Frank's uncle from the States. I couldn't believe I was about to go back to my old habits. After marrying the man I thought I would never cheat on, I tried to stay away from Eric as much as I could, but he was always hanging around me whenever we went for family functions. I realized later he was trying to flirt with me. I realized after some time that my husband's uncle, Eric, was trying to flirt with me. If this had happened in the past, I would have had no problem sleeping with him. He was the kind of man I usually cheated on with in my previous relationships. And even when I used to cheat, I tried as much as possible to cheat with people who didn't know any person close to me. I did everything in my power to restrain from cheating on my husband with his uncle. But about 6 months into our marriage, Frank had an accident, which left him immobilized for some time. During this period, we couldn't have any sexual relations. This was when the urge to cheat became very strong. I started yearning for the touch of another man. When my husband was strong enough to have sexual relations with me, I realized he was not good in bed as he used to be. One Christmas, my husband and I traveled to the States to spend the holidays with his family. Frank's uncle, Eric, was there too. I started having romantic daydreams about Eric. One morning, Eric took us down to the beach to catch some lunch for the day. He must have noticed the constant eye contact I was making with him, and it was as though he could hear the butterflies in my stomach every time he came within arm's length of me. My husband left his uncle and I on the beach. He said he wasn't feeling too well and wanted to go lie down. I was praying for him not to go because I didn't trust myself enough to be alone with his uncle Eric on the beach. Once my husband was out of sight, I just couldn't help myself. I couldn't control myself from flirting. I playfully asked Eric to show me how to catch the line. I sensed the electricity between us when we touched, and before I knew it, I had kissed him. It was very early in the morning and there were no people around. Eric had all the attractive qualities I loved in my husband and some ruggedness and experiences that my husband lacked. He laid me on the sand and made love to me. It happened only one time. After that, I didn't have the urge to cheat anymore. Eric and I never spoke about it, and I am content with only my husband for the meantime. I have never cheated with someone close to the person I was dating before. A few months later, after my husband and I returned home, I discovered I was pregnant. I felt sick with shock, not knowing whether the baby was for my husband or his uncle Eric. When we announced the happy news to the family, I wondered if Eric was thinking the same thing. When my beautiful baby boy arrived, my husband's family came down to be with us. Although my baby boy looks like his father, I sometimes see a little bit of Eric in him. I pray I never cheat on my husband again, but this is a secret no one needs to ever know.
My name is Mimi. My dad used to be a construction worker. He passed away after an accident at work. At that time, my mom was a housewife. After my dad's passing, she had to find a way to make money. She started to clean people's houses. It was hard work, but it paid our rent and bills. Unfortunately, my mom started having problems with her eyes and lost 60% of her sight. It affected her work. People didn't want to hire her anymore. Soon we ran out of money. We couldn't pay our rent. To buy food, we had to start selling our furniture. Eventually, the thing we feared most happened and we got evicted. My mom and I started living on the streets. I learned that when you're desperate, you get used to anything. I used to feel shy asking my dad for pocket money. Now I had no problem coming up to strangers and asking, "Do you have any change? My mom and I haven't eaten since yesterday." We were actually hungry and needed every penny we could get. We slept in the park. My mom tried her best to keep my spirits up. She would say, "Honey, please don't let this get you down. Think of it as camping. Your dad is watching us from above. If you're sad, he'll be sad too. We're a family. Families have good days and bad days. These days will pass." One day, as I was panhandling, a luxury car stopped in front of me. The man in the back seat asked, "Do you have parents?" "I have a mom," I said. "Take me to her. I have an offer for both of you," he said, catching me by surprise. When I looked inside the car, I saw a girl about my age. She was crying. When the man saw the worried look on my face, he said, "Don't be scared. This is my daughter. You'll soon find out what this is all about." I took them to my mom. The man told us, "My name is Kevin McCarthy, and this is my spoiled daughter, Yasmin. I'm in the oil and gas business. I am a billionaire, but I haven't done a good job of raising my daughter. For her birthday, I gave her a plane. You know what she said? It's too small." He turned to my mom and said, "My daughter doesn't appreciate what she has. Let's have our daughters switch places for a week. Yasmin will live with you in the park, and meanwhile, your daughter will live in my house. In exchange, I will buy you a house." I knew my mom wouldn't like this idea. Before she could say anything, I said, "Mom, please say yes. I'll switch places with Yasmin for a week. This would be good for both of us." My mom said, "You would be living with strangers. I don't think it's a good idea." "Mom, please, it's only for a week and then we won't be homeless anymore. We can't miss this opportunity," I pleaded with her. My mom wasn't convinced, but she said yes because she didn't want to upset me. Yasmin could see that her father was serious. She got even more upset. "Dad, I cannot live here. These people stink. Do you think this is the life your daughter deserves? You were always scared of me being kidnapped for ransom. What if they kidnap me?" But her father wouldn't hear of it. He said, "You need this experience. I'm sure you'll finally learn a thing or two. Don't worry about getting kidnapped. The bodyguards will be watching you, but you won't see them. And you'd better start being nice to this lady because she's going to be your mom for a week." I was upset that Yasmin said we stank. I handed her the cup I was holding. "You'll need this when you're panhandling. Tell them you're hungry. That's the only thing that works. And you will actually be hungry. By the way, you better get used to our smell because starting tomorrow you will smell just like us," I said. Mr. McCarthy seemed to like what I said. He told Yasmin, "Being homeless will teach you a lot. Look, you've already learned something," and laughed. Then he turned to me. "Young lady, we can go whenever you're ready. You will be our daughter for a week. I'm sure you'll like it." I wasn't very comfortable with the idea of leaving my mom at the park, but I kept thinking about the fact that after a week, we wouldn't be homeless anymore. We drove for an hour before arriving at the mansion. It was in the middle of a large property. It was the biggest house I'd ever seen. There were 2 smaller buildings next to it. I would later find out that one of them was for the staff and the other for clothes. The family had so much clothing that they needed a whole building to store it. A woman welcomed us at the entrance. This was Miss Samantha, who was in charge of managing the residence. Mr. McCarthy said, "Mimi will be our guest for a week. Treat her just like you would Yasmin." Miss Samantha took me to Yasmin's room. It was even more lavish than I'd imagined. As I looked around in awe, Miss Samantha asked, "Would you like to take a shower?" Of course I did. I spent so much time in the shower that Miss Samantha had to knock on my door and ask, "Is everything okay in there?" She had prepared pajamas for me. I put them on and went to bed. It'd been a while since I slept in a regular bed. However, I felt sad when I looked up and saw the ceiling instead of the stars. I'd gotten used to falling asleep looking at the sky. I wondered what my mom was doing. I was sure she was thinking about me at that moment. It was only the first night I was spending without her and I was missing her already. Next morning after breakfast, Miss Samantha took me to the wardrobe building. Yasmin's clothes took up an entire floor. I was so surprised that I screamed. "She has so many clothes!" Miss Samantha said, "Yasmin wears each outfit only once. It's her mother's wish." "Why?" I asked. "So that her mother can buy her more clothes," she replied. This sounded weird to me, but I didn't say anything. "Will I be meeting Yasmin's mother?" I asked. "Unfortunately, she's traveling for work at the moment. She's only home 3 days a month," she said. When I heard that, I felt sad for Yasmin. Seeing my mom only 3 days a month would never be enough for me. The next evening, Yasmin's dad took me out to dinner. When we walked in the restaurant, I couldn't believe my eyes. We were the only customers there. The entire staff was there just for us. This 5-star restaurant was closed to the public. When I asked why, Mr. McCarthy sighed. "You might think that being rich is amazing, but this life has its challenges. We can't just go out to dinner like normal people. You have to pay to reserve the whole restaurant, so we're the only people here. Firstly, it's for our safety. Wealthy people have a lot of enemies. But also it's because people constantly ask us for money. Charities, NGOs, entrepreneurs, you name it, everyone wants to get money from us. So if there were other people here, we wouldn't be able to have dinner in peace." After that evening, I never saw Yasmin's dad at home again. He had to travel for work all the time as well. When I first met Yasmin, I thought she was a spoiled brat, but when I realized what her life was actually like, I started to feel sorry for her. Money obviously makes life easier, but if you value family life like me, being a billionaire is not something to envy. Days went by very slowly. I missed my mom so much. Finally, the week was up. I was so excited when I woke up. Miss Samantha came in and said, "Yasmin's mother came home last night. She will take you to your mother." Yasmin's mother and I got in the car. She said to me, "Thanks so much for helping us out. Yasmin needed this experience. I'm sure she learned what a gift it is to be wealthy after seeing what it's like to be homeless. I bet she'll start crying the second she sees me and say, 'Mom, get me out of here.'" We got to the park and got out of the car. We started walking. We saw my mom and Yasmin having breakfast on the grass. They were chatting and laughing. When my mom saw me, she got up and embraced me. We hugged for a long time. She smelled awful, but I missed that stink. Yasmin also gave me a hug and said, "The week just flew by. Mimi, you are so lucky. You have an amazing mom." She also stank like a homeless person now. Yasmin's mother told my mom, "Thank you for looking out for my daughter." But she seemed to be disappointed. She had expected Yasmin to be desperate, but in fact, she looked really happy. She said, "Honey, aren't you happy to see me? I missed you so much." When Yasmin didn't respond, she laughed and said, "Well, maybe you haven't missed me, but I'm sure you've missed your old life." Yasmin got upset. "Mom, I don't think you missed me. When was the last time you, Dad, and I had dinner together? I can't even remember. I don't think the three of us have sat at the same table in years. I haven't missed my normal life at all. I had the best meals of my life in this park. I hadn't slept this well in a long time. You know what I realized out here? The only thing a person my age needs is parents who are paying attention to them." Now Yasmin's mother was mad. "How can you be so ungrateful? Your father and I give you everything. You got a plane for your birthday. What else can we do for you?" she screamed. Yasmin started crying. "Mom, you're only giving me those gifts out of guilt. I got used to equating your gifts with love. I kept asking for more expensive gifts to be able to convince myself that you loved me, but now I understand what I really need is a mother who is always with me, just like Mimi's mom." Yasmin's mother stopped. She looked at her daughter's face. She knew what she was talking about. She started crying. She embraced Yasmin. "You're right, honey. You're right. I'm such an idiot for not seeing that sooner. Please forgive me," she said. They hugged each other and cried for a while. Mr. McCarthy bought us a house, just like he promised he would. He even gave my mom a job in one of his companies. Our money troubles are over. My mom could finally afford a visit to the ophthalmologist. After 2 surgeries, she regained her eyesight. Now she can see as well as she used to. Yasmin and I became friends. She comes to visit a few times a week. Sometimes her mom comes with her. She took another job at the company. She doesn't travel anymore. She is now able to spend more time with her daughter. Yasmin's dad seems to have understood his mistake as well. Even if he needs to travel for work, he comes home whenever he can, and they have long family dinners together. They invited us to their house for Thanksgiving. They all looked very happy. Yasmin's dad thanked us by saying, "People measure wealth with money, but real wealth is about the things in life that you cannot buy with money. In that way, you were actually very poor. Thanks for helping us figure it out." And this made us very happy.